Well, we've got yet another Victory Tuesday edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. If you catch us via the podcast, remember we do stream live Tuesday nights, 9:30 p.m. with you as always. Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We are talking Chiefs football. What do we learn about this Chiefs team in their fifth win, 11th consecutive win if you count the playoffs and the end of last year? Can they sustain this type of offense with all the injuries they've had? What's the reaction to Rashee Rice's injury diagnosis? Is Mahomes over a slump? Can JuJu Smith-Schuster be a number one wide receiver for this team? Will Kareem Hunt keep up this kind of workload? The red zone continues to be an issue for the Chiefs. Can the defense carry the team? That's right. We're back talking defense this week right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Back at it here now, discussing the 5-0 Kansas City Chiefs, 26-13. I don't know. Everybody remember what they had for scores on this one? There's one guy, maybe a little bit of a belly, maybe a lot of a belly, two thumbs, who had 27-13. Not quite all the way there, but I felt pretty good about that prediction. Jeff, what's your takeaway from this game? What'd you learn about this Kansas City Chiefs team off this one?
I learned that once again, when their backs are against the wall and they're doubted and things look bad, they can find a way to focus and make something happen for themselves. I mean, it was their most impressive game of the year. They were strong on offense, strong on defense. They controlled the football for almost 40 minutes. They played a style of football that I thought they'd have to play moving forward, and were convicted about it. And look, it was impressive to watch how they went about things, because we'll get into whether they can sustain this. But I think when we started talking about this last week, like, I think I was the only one who mentioned JuJu Smith-Schuster as being the best option in the passing game. And I think we were all kind of wondering what Kareem Hunt would do and who else would step up. And Mahomes was obviously playing pretty poorly before now. He had his best game of the year. So I think you have to be happy about it. And you have to, if you're a Chiefs fan, you have to feel pretty good about your team's resilience.
Yeah, for sure. I like the back against the wall part of the equation. I definitely think that's a good description. That looked like, hey, this could be tough. Look at all the weapons they're down, and yet they come out and have maybe their best performance of the year. Sam, what did you take away from it?
Well, I mean, so Jeff phrased it as saying it's their most impressive game of the year. I'd add to it with the fewest resources they've had in a game this season. And so, therefore, I mean, Soren, I said this on your radio show, this was an Andy Reid game for me. I mean, this was a night when Andy Reid had to scheme things up. And, in the realm of patting ourselves on the back, I did say the solution to this was going to be scheme. Like, Andy Reid was going to have to scheme guys open. We had a comment right before we got started that said, how did so many guys get high school wide open? That's scheme. That's Andy Reid's stuff going on. I mean, I put this in my column today. The Chiefs had 4 players who were cut within the last 12 months with JuJu Smith-Schuster, McCole Hardman, Samaje Perine, and Jody Fortson, and one more who was sitting on his couch 3 weeks ago waiting for an opportunity. So 5 guys who didn't even know if they had played their last NFL game. Those guys combined for 294 yards of offense in this game. So the Chiefs are finding ways and to use players who other teams. And by the way, these are bad teams. This is a Jets team that gave up on McCole Hardman. This is a Broncos offense that's like 5th to last in offense that gave up on Samaje Perine. A Dolphins team that's struggling that gave up on Jody Fortson. A Patriots team that is dead last in passing offense in the NFL that gave up on JuJu Smith-Schuster. They're averaging 140 or like 14, I think, passing yards per game. He had 130 receiving yards on Monday night. I'm just thinking, like, what are the Patriots thinking as they're watching Andy Reid get use out of all these guys? These bad NFL teams get use. You know, a good team get use of these players that bad NFL teams could not find use for. Like, this was a compliment to Andy Reid to the fullest.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what is it about that? Because I think it's a great point you did have today, and you reiterate it here with, all the production they're getting from guys that are seemingly cast-offs. What do we – and I think the answer is always a little bit of both, right, in reality, but is there one that's more than the other? One, other teams don't see the talents that are there. In JuJu Smith-Schuster, and the Chiefs are just, and Kareem Hunt, the Chiefs are just better at scouting it, or no, to your point, Sam, I think where you're at, it's Andy Reid knows how to use them better than anybody else, right? Like, but there is an element of, like, you're in the get it right business. These guys have talent. You should have coaches that can extract, production out of these players, and you should sign them before they go to the Chiefs. I continue to be amazed at how much they just let useful players be available for the Kansas City Chiefs, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. And look, I don't want to be, a buzzkill, but I'll say this as we'll get into the sustainability part of it. I think you can do that for a couple games, but these guys do have warts. That shouldn't be forgotten here, that to do it for an entire whatever season or the next 15, 16 games, however many games they play, Andy Reid is using a lot of tricks, a lot of gimmicks. And within the NFL, there's only so much you can do when you're operating that way and get away with before people catch on to it. It's why when he runs the first 15 plays, they look great. And then you get into the second quarter and they're not moving the ball as quickly or as fluidly because people know it's coming. And I think Sam's right. I think he did bring out a lot of tricks to get guys open, to make it work. But it's going to get harder moving forward because at some point there's a threshold for that.
Why are they tricks? Why are they tricks?
I'm not talking about tricks. They're not tricks. I'm talking about just tricks in the bag. He's going into his bag to find. I'm not saying it's a trick like trick plays. I'm saying the schemes that he's using, the things that he's doing with these players, he's putting them on tape. People are seeing them on film. They're knowing. It's like the first game of the season. You don't know what they're going to do. This was almost like the first game of the season again, just with a whole new group of guys. So if you're the Saints, you don't know what JuJu Smith-Schuster is going to give you. You don't know what, you may have some idea what Kareem Hunt can give you, but Jody Fortson's out there now, and they're running all these, 3-4 tight end sets. It's like this. It's just different. And so, yeah, I think the more people see it, the harder it will be to do it. But it's a euphemism, okay? It's not tricks like in a bad way. It's tricks in like you're going into your bag to do some scheming.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, if you want to know the difficulty of what the Chiefs are doing right now, just look at the way they construct their own roster. I mean, the difference between the John Dorsey era and Brett Veach era has been defined by the difference between prioritizing youth versus prioritizing proven veterans. I mean, Brett Veach has been a general manager. I mean, we talked about it on Friday. Like, he went from Tyrann Mathieu to Justin Reid purely because of the youth and speed factor that Justin Reid and some physicality too. But I mean, they prioritize youth and speed over all else when they draft players. Even how frequently do we talk about the fact that their draft picks are not these 24-year-old players? Xavier Worthy comes out at 21 years old. They often they're telling everyone that, hey, we think youth and speed is the way to go. And here they just won a game on Monday night in the exact opposite way because they've at least have filled in the gaps with that, right? If you're going to have these bottom of the roster guys that, hey, break glass in case of emergency players, At least give me the guys that know the offense, the guys that have been around the league for a while, the guys that can, in the meantime, if we are healthy, help the young players move along. JuJu Smith-Schuster said last night at the podium, he goes, I was sitting around waiting on a phone call. When Andy Reid called me, he told me, you're just going to be a package player here. And JuJu Smith-Schuster said, I was fine with that. I was okay with just being the rah-rah guy, the guy that helped the young players move along. But guess what? When you need somebody, you get that component out of it, but then you get the dependable, reliable veteran who, let's face it, isn't the Sky Moore type of player that you're wondering, is he going to execute this play in the correct manner?
Yeah. I mean, listen, plan A is not to have JuJu Smith-Schuster have the kind of game that he had, right? Like,
right.
Plan A is for other guys to be there, but it's a pretty good plan B when you have a guy that's effective. And listen, JuJu's not 32 years old. You know, he was young when he came into the league. I think he's 28 now. So
29, I think.
29.
Yeah, 29 in November.
Those knees are 32, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, maybe 40. Yeah.
Remember, you can always support the podcast by supporting our fine sponsors like David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gay Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot.
Soren, let me open it up by saying I misspoke in a politician way, which just means I was wrong. JuJu's 27.
He's 27. Okay, so yeah, I didn't think he was. He was surprisingly young to be out on the free agent market. I mean, and that's one of the things we've talked about a lot.
He was 20 when he came in the league. He was a young guy.
Yeah, he was really young when he came into the league. But I still, even though you found out he's 2 years younger, I don't think the knees got any younger.
He's still 32. Yeah, the knees are still 32.
The knees are still 32. I think that's the important part of the equation. Can this offense sustain that kind of success, Jeff? Can it continue to be? I mean, let's do it. I think a lot of people pointed it out here. They did have a missed 51-yard field goal. Harrison Butker, turns out he's human. And they also had the obvious, ball knocked up into the air for an interception down at the goal line. A lot of people have said, myself included, could have been 36 points for the Chiefs in this game. The yardage was massive going up and down the field and 10 points left to the side. So, even in what has been their best game, they had the potential to be even better. Can they be at this level moving forward offensively?
I'm not confident in that. I think it will look more like the first 4 or 5 weeks, the first 4 weeks as time goes by. And that's not a knock on Andy Reid or anybody. It's just a reality. You're relying on a running back, like Sam said, who was unemployed when the season started. You're relying heavily on a receiver who has missed 18 games over the last 3 years. He stayed healthy in Kansas City, but the other 2 seasons he missed 18 games. And then Travis Kelce's 35, and Travis about to be 35, and we know what he was like throughout parts of last season. Like a friend of mine, Mark Ross, says, who used to work with Andy in Philadelphia, you do a lot of scouting, you realize one thing: old players don't get better with time. They tend to get worse. They tend to get more beat up. And I think the usage rate for all these guys, if it's going to be where it's at, that's what people have to understand. It's not that you're ripping these guys. This is reality. The idea of Travis Kelce getting fewer touches was good in the long run. The idea of Kareem Hunt getting fewer touches is good in the long run. The idea of JuJu Smith-Schuster getting fewer touches is good in the long run. If you're going to have a high usage rate for those guys, it's just going to be harder because people are going to scheme them up.
Yeah. Do you believe the offense can look like it did in this past game, Sam, for the better part of the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I still have my doubts as well. I mean, I'd like to see him do it more than one time before I determine that this is the new look of the offense, because they hadn't even done this with their full lot of guys yet. I mean, this was 107 more yards than they had gained in any of the initial 4 games. But the Saints have a good pass defense. Even after last night's game, they're still a top 10 pass defense. This wasn't like they beat up on the Commanders or the Bengals last night. I mean, they schemed up a pretty good team that is hard to scheme up because the Saints run as many unscouted looks as anybody in the NFL does. It's like a staple of Dennis Allen's defense is he tries to fool you and disguise you with what he's doing. It's one of the reasons he brought in Tyrann Mathieu, because he can kind of plug him in different spots and try and fool you into what he's going to run. And so the fact that the Chiefs were able to do that and a lot of plays that forced them to sort of adjust on the fly because they didn't know exactly what defensive play was coming, I think that's going to be part of the benefit, realizing it's not a net benefit of having JuJu Smith-Schuster on the field a lot more, is he knows the offense extremely well. I mean, no one's ever going to know this offense the way Travis Kelce did, but JuJu Smith-Schuster and his study process isn't just studying his job. He's trying to study everyone's job to get a better of understanding where the openings are going to be if it's not exactly where the play had called it for it to be.
Yeah, I'm optimistic, and I try to check myself as a Chiefs fan. Like I want to believe it, and you guys know that I've been trying for 2 years to, I tried at least 14 weeks last year to say that the offense was going to get back, and finally had to go like, okay, it's not there. I'm a little skeptical as well. I mean, the numbers were just giant in this game, and that's, Sam's right. I mean, I think it is a great success to be able to do that, and they accomplished something by getting over on Dennis Allen's defense, but no, they're not this good, right? Like I do think you, as a Chiefs fan, and if you're in this organization and you're one of the coaches, one of the players, like not turning the ball over is the way they're turning the ball over is not something that, well, we can't help it, right? Like you can get away from the turnovers, and I think that would help a lot. And they just continue to have those. So I think if they could get away from that, I think the fact that their defense is so stingy, maybe can take some pressure off the offense. But I loved what JuJu did. I thought it was great they got Travis Kelce going. Xavier Worthy made an impact, really running the ball more than catching it. But I don't see what you did happening every week.
Well, let me go. Go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was going to say, let me throw one stat on there, and I'll preface it by saying the Chiefs are 5-0, and they've had a really difficult schedule to get there. The Chiefs ran 80 offensive plays last night. It's by far the most they've run all season. On a per play basis, they're 5.75 yards per play. Just to give you a reference point of this Chiefs, like the way we're praising their offensive night, 2 years ago that would have been their 4th worst night of the season on a per play basis offensively. So they were aided by the fact that the defense was getting off the field quickly, by the fact that there were a lot of plays run in the game overall. The Saints were not running the ball as much as we had anticipated. But they did execute well, and they executed well with guys that typically aren't on the field and guys that other NFL teams decided shouldn't even be on the field at all.
Yeah, no, I do think that, Jeff, would you agree? Andy Reid's been a little bit overdue to figure out the defenses, right? Like, I mean, I was starting to have is he maybe losing his fastball? Why doesn't he have that gotcha moment where he's, he's just completely pantsing the opposition? Then I also remind myself, well, he's down some talent, that's part of it too. But I do think that Andy Reid's been kind of overdue to have a day like this where he clearly gets the better of a defensive coordinator.
Here's how I look at it. One, what I was going to say a second ago is that the good and the bad part about the NFL is that everybody wants every week to be a referendum on either what they think or don't think about somebody or some team. And it's not. It's like it's one more step in the journey towards the end result. And so that's why people, I get why people get excited about what happened, but it's also why we have questions about it, because you don't know. History tells you that to be able to sustain that kind of offensive production, you need to have great talent. If you go around the NFL, and I'm getting around to your point about Andy Reid, if you go around the NFL you're going to find most of the big plays happen because great players are doing great things. If Jamar Chase catches a 1-yard pass and goes 70 yards, that's not scheme. That's Jamar Chase, right? If that's, if Derrick Henry goes on a great run, that's not scheme more often. That's just Derrick Henry being great with a hole that he can get through, or Lamar Jackson, whoever it is, Josh Allen. And so that's what this team is lacking right now. And so, yeah, Andy Reid is doing a great job of scheming it up, but he was scheming it up last year. They just drop passes, but they turn it over. It's just, you can have the greatest playbook in the world and the greatest ideas and concepts. But at the end of the day, the teams that win championships, same with this team, they're great players make great plays. It's Chris Jones, it's Travis Kelce, it's Tyreek Hill, it's Patrick Mahomes. It's those guys doing things other people can't do.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think they're getting those great plays, right? Like, I mean, Chris Jones has been a beast. He seems to be motivated by the idea of getting, Defensive Player of the Year. At least that's what he said in the interview beforehand. He's playing at a high level. Trent McDuffie's playing at a high level.
I'm talking about the offense side of it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
But I mean, it counts on the defense too. I mean, right? But offensively, who are the elite players? They're Patrick Mahomes. They're their interior offensive linemen, right? I mean, I think they're getting the job done.
Well, and one more thing that Jeff mentioned is the scheme looks a lot better just when the players execute the most simple of tasks. And one of those is the drop passes that Jeff mentioned. I mean, no quarterback in the league had more drop passes last year than Patrick Mahomes. I think it was at 30. This year he's had 5. I mean, they're at 1 per game drop, and they had 3 of those on opening night. They've only dropped 2 passes in the last 4 weeks. Last year they dropped almost 2 passes a game, and because Patrick Mahomes only played 16 of the 17 games, 30 drop passes. It was almost 2 a game. Now it's at 1, and it's been at half for the last 4 games. It's amazing how much better your offense looks when you just execute the very simple task.
Yeah. Well, even like scheme wasn't Travis Kelce catching a short pass and running it and flipping it over to Samaje Perine. That's Travis Kelce being creative. That wasn't like a great third 22 call. That's what great players do.
Which, by the way, is that eventually going to end up with the ball being knocked out of his hand or somebody dropping it?
It's coming.
I don't care. I still want to see more of it. As the lateral has always been underutilized in the NFL.
I agree. I mean, I the hook and lateral, or hook and ladder, depending upon, people say it both ways. To me, it was always, I thought, the best play for an end of half.
It always works. Have you ever seen it fail?
And I don't understand why they don't do it more. I think it's hard to scheme it. It's hard enough to get players to just do what you need them to do off the line of scrimmage, but then say, okay, now after all this is going on, reconvene and align yourself to where we have options to pitch it. I mean, it's tougher than it looks.
Absolutely. The timing's hard to figure out.
Yeah. But I mean, I think when you've got a guy like Travis Kelce catching the ball, you need to say, and Andy Reid kind of talked about this, everyone's got to be alive, right? No, he will pitch it. Like, I think that's one of the things that I think, listen, it was brilliant against the Buffalo Bills. Kadarius Toney was just offsides, and it was one of the few things he caught. But that's my fear, is that you throw that thing over there and they don't catch it. It's a lateral. It's a live ball. You got to get on it. Yeah. So, like, do you do it so much?
A whole bunch of fat guys around trying to get to it.
Yeah, but do you do it so much that you start to get lackadaisical, or, you forget that you got to get on that ball if he doesn't catch it, because it's still a live ball. It's not an incomplete pass and the play's over. You got to get on top of it. So I love it too. It's fun. I think
he does it all the time in practice. I mean, it's a regular thing in practice. So, like, no play. I was about to say no player should be surprised, but I still think seeing it in live game, it's so foreign that there probably is the surprise element of it. I will just throw in, Patrick Mahomes had a hilarious quote last night when he was asked about that play, and said he just told Travis Kelce before the play, we just need to get in field goal range here. Like, I'm just going to throw it to you real quick, get in field goal range. And he's like, then he underhand shovels it halfway across the field, and he said, it's like I'm talking to Sterling, his 3-year-old daughter.
Yeah. That was pretty good. All right, what's your reaction to the Rashee Rice injury diagnosis? We finally seem to have one after much speculation from many insiders. What do you think, Jeff, about what we heard?
Not surprised. It wasn't an ACL. I don't want to say I got a kick out of it because it's bad news for him, but it was just like the idea. It's positive news, and it's it's not so positive news. It's like he's out for the season. Like the positive is he's making a full recovery as if no one's ever recovered from knee surgery. I don't understand that thinking, but end of the day, yeah, he got saved from a more catastrophic knee injury, but it's still costing him a season. He's still going to probably miss a good chunk, maybe half of next year, because of the suspension that's probably going to come down for him. And so, yeah, I don't see how this is a positive for him or the Chiefs. It's a huge loss. I still think it's very hard to see them winning the Super Bowl without Rashee Rice being on the roster. I don't see it happening.
What's your reaction, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, the reaction to me is what it means for the Chiefs. And I think he's the third most important player on the roster. It's Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Rashee Rice. And I think before you argue like third, whether it's Kelsey or Rashee Rice, you argue whether Rashee Rice is second. I just think he's that significant. I mean, we mentioned earlier as far as, Soren, you asked, like, it's been time for Andy Reid to solve what these defenses have been facing. Rashee Rice was at the center of his solution with throwing short. And if you can't get the depth of target to be deep, get the receiver to run deep after he has the ball in his hands already. And nobody was better at that than he's had in his offense than Rashee Rice.
Yeah, I don't understand why there was this dangling hope that like, oh, no, he's going to be back. There were even reports saying he's going to be back sooner than people thought. And I think some people are even kind of hedging it. He's done for the regular season was one of the reports that was out there. Well, or, I don't think he's going to be back for the playoffs. I think he's done, period. For playing football. Sam, you said it today when we were talking on the radio show that the next time we'll see him is in St. Joe. And then they won't see him probably for between 4 and 8 weeks when they leave St. Joe when he's put on suspension, because by that point his legal process will have played out. And so he's going to not play in a football game for more than a year in all likelihood.
Yeah, people are holding out hope because of the same thing we're saying here. He was that significant to their hopes for a three-peat. It's no way around it.
No, agreed. I mean, I get that wholeheartedly. I also get, I love this. We always love like you said, support this podcast by supporting the sponsors. Somebody fired up about the Minsky's promo code. So take advantage of that. Minsky's has a new pizza. It's called the Tranquillo. You can check it out at any one of their 17 area locations.
All new at Minsky's, world champion KC linebacker Drew Tranquil's game day gourmet pizza creation, the Tranquillo Crunch. Loaded up with the meats. Gotta have that protein. Sausage, capicola, ground beef, mozzarella, pepperoni, a dusting of Romano and oregano, plus the extra special Panko Crunch Crust make up this pizza that's fit for a champion. Better yet, every Tranquillo Crunch pizza ordered this season benefits Operation Breakthrough. Use promo code PETRO3 for $3 off a large Tranquillo Crunch now through October 31st. The Tranquillo with Panko Crust is available at all 17 KC Metro locations, only for this season, so make sure you get the Minsky's.
Get your keys to the kingdom at Key Cannabis Dispensaries. Unlock unbeatable savings and a chance to win a KC VIP game day experience when you shop at Key Cannabis throughout the month of September. In September, every $65 you spend will enter you to win. Save on product and qualify for an exclusive Black Friday game day giveaway. It's a win-win. Visit any of our 12 locations in Missouri to learn more or visit keycannabis.com/sweepstakes for full contest rules and conditions.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Patrick Mahomes and his supposed slump. Jeff, would you say he's busted the slump? Saints were the slump buster, and Patrick Mahomes is now good to go?
Yeah, look, he might have some more games that aren't up to his standard, but I was never of the belief that this was going to be an awful season for him. He's just too talented, and he's proven to be too successful at what he does for a living to think that. So I think he needed to have a game like this where a lot of things went right. Yeah, the interception in the end zone was a tough break for him. But I felt like he was really bought in to the offense, and the game plan was really good for what he had to do. I don't think he really forced a lot of stuff. And I know that I think I saw the stat that said their average depth of target was something like less than 4 yards. Like they weren't throwing the football down the field that much. But that's how they're going to have to play. And I think he's really, I always commend him when he understands, okay, I got to go this way to make it work. And he's done that in previous years, and he's doing it now. So I think that, to me, the numbers didn't surprise me because he's going to do that. He was going to do it at some point. It's just that I like the commitment to what they did. Run the football, be pragmatic about it, and score points.
Yeah. By the way, I do love this. Now if we can somehow get Bobby Wood Jr. to play the Saints to break his slump. I like that. Slump busted in your mind, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, we always grade Patrick Mahomes on a ridiculous bar, but part of that is because he grades himself on a ridiculous bar, and part of that is why he's able to achieve this ridiculous bar so frequently, is because he's very hard on himself. And I think this week what he's going to grade himself hard on is pressures, because Patrick Mahomes was pressured more frequently than any quarterback in the league this last week, 17 times. But 6 of those Pro Football Focus credited with the quarterback as the one responsible for the pressure rather than one of his offensive linemen. That was 2 more than any quarterback in the league. And I thought there were several plays where his first instinct was to think, what's the protection going to be after I snap this ball, rather than having the protection solidified pre-snap and feeling confident that it was going to be there. And look, that's not all his fault. Part of that is because his tackles were not good in the game. Wanya Morris and Juwan Taylor were both suspect Monday night. And as a result, you've got a quarterback that's wondering, is this pocket going to hold up, and can I make the play I want to make here? After that, I thought he was very creative. I thought he extended plays in a way that when the pressure was there, when it wasn't just in his head, he was able to make some plays downfield that we haven't seen. When I say downfield, I mean beyond the line of scrimmage. Downfield, when he's well behind the line of scrimmage, he's still finding ways downfield as opposed to just running with the ball. But that, I think, like I said, I think that's the part he's going to grade himself the strictest on when he goes back and looks at this tape. But it's also the part that the Chiefs have to get solidified up front, because as much as we're talking about the weapons, because that's a very real thing, that part doesn't matter if you can't solidify everything up front first.
Yeah, I don't think he busted a slump, because I don't think he was in a slump. I mean, I think the problems lie around him. One, we've talked about, Sam. It's great, the production that they got from all these guys that were, basically given up on in some way, shape, or form by most of the league. But they also are guys that most of the league gave up on. And so I don't even think the man was in a slump. And I had somebody, I've said this before. It's, covering the Royals back in the day when the Royals were one of their stints where they were bad. And Mike Sweeney was making big money and was the one player. And he'd hit a home run and a sac fly, and the Royals would be trailing 3-2. He'd come up in the 9th, hit one to the wall, and I'd take a phone call in post game saying, well, Mike Sweeney's got to be more clutch. I'm like, Mike Sweeney is not the problem, right? Like, it's not the star player. I know eventually we get tired of saying, take Kadarius Toney off the field, get Sky Moore off the field, like all those kind of things. And people started getting there with Patrick Mahomes last year. And it was, as you were talking about earlier, Sam, it was the drops, right? It's not him. He literally, Gisele Bundchen's right. He can't throw it and catch it, right? And he also can't throw it and block it. And if you're not consistently blocking it, then he's going to get a little bit more happy feet. And I was, I don't think he's got as happy a feet as a lot of other people think. And I was happy to see Mitchell Schwartz kind of put a breakdown together. He sent out on Twitter and was kind of saying, like, no, this is not, it's not.
After the Chargers game.
Yeah, after the Chargers game. And so, I look, I don't think he was in a slump. I don't know.
What was it? How would you characterize what he was in then? He wasn't playing well.
I think he's human. I mean, I just think he's human. I think slump makes it seem like he doesn't know what he's doing. He's looking for answers. He's not sure where to go. I think he knew where to go with the ball. He just overthrew one to Travis Kelce that ended up being picked. He just didn't see a. So I think he was just human. I'm not like, how dare you say he's in a slump? I'm fine with that term.
Yeah.
And I'm fine hearing it. But okay. I never felt like, is this going to end up being a terrible year for Patrick Mahomes? Has he forgot how to be the best, quarterback in the NFL? I never thought that was the case. Did you?
Well, a slump to me is a temporary thing. So I think if you think he's going to have a bad year, you say, okay, he's going into Deshaun Watson territory. Like, you just say he sucks. Like, he's not good. I think a slump means, I don't know. I think I'm wondering if you think if it wasn't him, then who was it? Because he had his, outside of Marquise Brown, like, everybody was healthy when he was not playing well. So he wasn't the whole problem, but I do feel like he was part of the problem.
Boy, Kevin says this stuff really upsets Petro. It's semantics. Yes, 100%. Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
I also like this one. Chris says 15. The standards for number 15 are very high. They are very high. And like I said, I don't really. I get it. I'm not like, how dare you say he's in a slump? That's fine with that. I just think that the bar is so high for him that when he doesn't play perfectly, we've got to come up with a label for it. Or we've got to say what's going on. I think it's just like he's a human being, and yes, he had a few bad throws, but like I don't think he played poorly for an entire game. I think he had a couple of bad plays. Does that make sense? That's where slump to me is like you're bad the whole game. I don't think he was ever bad the whole game. I think he had a handful of bad plays.
Atlanta, he was pretty bad in that game. I will say anytime Patrick Mahomes does go through whatever words we want to use to describe, whether it's slump or otherwise, I usually try and trace the root cause of it because I do think Patrick Mahomes has these valleys as well. And he did have one against Atlanta. And the root cause of that, I thought, was the week before and what he had at left tackle with Kingsley Suamataia was still in his head. I go through some of the things this game, and again, I think it's because of the tackle play that he's getting. I think when we go back to last season, he's not confident throwing to wide receivers unless they're wide open, and there's a reason for that. His wide receivers could not come up with catches last year. When you go back to the year before, when he had 7 interceptions in like 4 weeks, and the Chiefs started 3-4 that year, his receivers had like 8 tipped passes that wound up with interceptions. So I do think this quarterback slumps. But I always think there's a root cause of it that's even more interesting. There's an underlying reason why that's typically not something that's of his origin.
Well, and I would say it was Andy Reid in a slump.
I think Andy Reid goes through slumps too. Yeah.
I mean, because that to me, like where we're like, we had the comment here, and Jeff, you said it, the Saints are a pretty good defense, and yet, a couple people talked early on about all the guys that were running high school wide open. Like that's what I think of when Andy Reid's clicking. Like he gets guys high school wide open. I go back to like when Travis Kelce was the only receiver out there with Alex Smith, and it's like this is the one guy you got to stop, and they had no one else, and he would still get him wide freaking open 3 or 4 times a game, and like we just hadn't seen that, and that's what I'm like, okay, well, come on, Andy, where to quote Eric Eager, call the good plays, right? I would subscribe more to Andy Reid being in a little bit of a slump more than Patrick Mahomes being in a slump.
Yeah, I think they all get in the slumps. I think they all have their moments because there is sometimes the belief, and we talked about this coming into the season, about we're going to play a certain way because we're the Chiefs. That's what we do. We got this generational quarterback. We got this Hall of Fame coach. We're just going to go run over people and score 40 points a game and throw the ball wherever we want to throw it. And then reality sets in. Like you're not going to be able to do that because teams aren't going to allow you to do that. Guys get hurt. Guys aren't as good as you thought. And then you have to adjust. And so, again, I think a lot of what Andy Reid has had to do is adjust. And I think he's adjusted faster than Mahomes had in this regard. I think he's accepted, I got to run the football. The talent is not what I thought it was going to be, so I have to come in here and really design stuff to get guys open. I think there's a belief coming into the season that, as I said before, we've got great players. Get them the football, let them go to work. That's just not what they have right now.
Yeah. By the way, 9 of 30. That's a slump. Talking about Josh Allen and what he did. The Bengals in a slump. JuJu Smith-Schuster. We talked about him a little bit, but can he, be a number one? Let's talk about him specifically. I mean, or what does a number one look like in this Andy Reid offense, Sam?
A number one right now, I think, looks like a running back. I agree with Jeff. They've become a run-first team. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the way they're running the football more than ever. And look, they've got there's a couple interesting stats when you combine them together about their run game, which is they run the ball. They've had the second highest run success rate in the NFL. The Rams passed them this last week, so highest in the AFC, if you want to say that. But they've had the fewest 10-yard runs in the NFL, which means they're just consistently pushing the pile up front to get 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 yards at a very high clip. They're not having negative plays. Going back to the question you actually did ask about JuJu, the most encouraging sign for JuJu was, I think, the hardest thing to replicate in this Chiefs offense without Rashee Rice is after the catch. JuJu Smith-Schuster had 81 yards after the catch in the game, second most in the entire NFL last week. That's what they need JuJu to do, is make plays with the ball in your hands already.
Am I the only one that can read the rundown? Like, will Kareem Hunt keep this up? Like a better place for Sam's little stat about the rushing. Like, it's the next topic on the list. Like, great, I'm not going to get to it. I'm not going to put it out there, for God's sake. Jeff, does this offense even need a number one wide receiver? I mean, is that something that's, you're just getting hung up on semantics?
Well, you don't have to have a number one, but you'd hope to have some guys who can combine to make, give you a pretty good combination of options. And yeah, I mean, it didn't have to be like a Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase type player, but the more people you can give Mahomes his trust, the better the offense looks. Like, again, I'm not surprised that it looked better with JuJu because he trusts JuJu. It's clear he trusts JuJu. He trusts Travis. Like, Travis wasn't dominant, but like I've said before, the offense, other people seem to eat when he gets the ball more. So even if it's like 6 yards or 7 yards to catch whatever it was, at least it's forcing defenses to focus on him and create other options, other openings elsewhere. But yeah, I think, look, you know how I feel about Xavier Worthy. Great long-term potential. Like, he's not going to be a week in, week out option for you. He's just not. And after that, the fall off is pretty steep. Like, Justin Watson is not, he's invisible. They had McCole Hardman in there for a couple plays. Sky Moore is like, you start looking at what's down there, it's not pretty. So yeah, JuJu's got to be, I don't think he's a number one, but he is trustworthy. And now whether he can stay healthy and whether he can win when people are focusing on him more defensively, that's the question he has to answer.
Yeah. I listen, I think he can be what they need him to be. That if he's healthy, right? And that's one of the things that I will point out, that injuries are not just 1 + 1 + 1. The more you take on, it tends to be more of exponential in the way they pile on. So if they lose JuJu Smith-Schuster, now they really are screwed. Right. Like at that point, I agree with you, because McCole Hardman has his neat little package of plays. Like, I know you told the story about Andy Reid saying he brought him in, he was going to be a package player, but he has the ability to be more. McCole Hardman does not. Right. Like, the guys that you're down to after that, I think you really do get into some trouble if you lose him. So I don't think he'll be a number one. No, I don't think they need him to be a number one, but I think they do need him to be out there. I'll say that. I mean, I think they definitely need him to be out there. You're all eager about running the ball, Sam. 27 carries, though, in my mind, is too much. And we say, can Kareem Hunt keep this up? I think Kareem Hunt can continue to be productive, but I don't think he can continue this workload. Do you?
Yeah, now's a good time to tell a JuJu Smith-Schuster story, right?
Yeah.
Look, I mean, the most impressive part of Kareem Hunt is that he doesn't get negative plays. I mean, 17 of his first 18 carries in that game went for at least 2 yards. Like, he does not put them behind schedule that frequently. And they haven't had a running back like that since Kareem Hunt. I know Isaiah Pacheco runs with a very physical style of football. He still gets caught in the backfield some, in a way that Kareem Hunt has not these first 2 games. So I know somebody's giving me crap in the comments about this 15-yard run. So let's go ahead and just actually throw out the stat here just to needle them. I've mentioned multiple times that my doubt about what Kareem Hunt had left was the fact that he only ran 4 carries over 15 yards, 15 miles per hour last year and 131 carries. He's got 5 this year already. He's already surpassed last year's total. Like, this injury thing that a lot of players use as an excuse, I think it was a legitimate one for Kareem Hunt based on what we've seen. And I'm not as concerned, I think, as you, Soren, about his usage, purely because I do think Isaiah Pacheco comes back at some point this season. And I know that you want to still use both of these guys, particularly with the way Kareem Hunt has been playing. But they also had a bye week this week. I don't think we're talking about Kareem Hunt getting 27 carries if they're playing again next Sunday.
I think all that's true. I still think they need Kareem Hunt to be effective late in the year, even with Isaiah Pacheco. I think he brings a different style and a physical style. And I think he's better in the passing game. Jeff, do you think he can keep up this kind of production?
I'm with you. Not at the rate you're talking about, 27 carries. And they haven't really got him into the passing game at all yet, which is, I thought, was the real big, advantage of bringing him back to the roster.
They got him in pass pro. I mean, you see that block he had on the Jody Fortson first down catch? When we talk about running backs and pass game, that's number one on their list above catching the football, I think, is can you block a blitz?
Yeah. Well, point I'm making is that I think he can be really effective as another option when they're throwing the football, and they haven't gone to that yet. Or, the screen game, whatever you want to do with him, he can do it as far as throwing the football. But, I don't think he's a 27 carry guy. And, my concern, I do think he's going to be super important to them in November and December and January. And, again, guys his age get hurt. There's a lot of guys who are out there his age. Whatever his usage rate was, his workload was in Cleveland before this, I get it. But he's 29 years old. And you give him the ball 25 times a game, I guarantee you he's going to be hurt at some point.
Yeah, no, I do too, and that's what I'm worried about. Is that we saw Andrew Reid, run Jamal Charles into the ground and get him hurt, and then it was Nile Davis ran him into the ground and got him hurt. He'd kind of gotten away from that. I think he's got to find a way to share the carries, and I agree with what Terry said. I don't know what's wrong. Samaje Perine is good.
He's big. He's huge.
There's also a difference in like those guys you mentioned, Soren. He had Alex Smith, not Patrick Mahomes. The reason that he didn't, quote unquote, run these other guys into the ground is because they became an extreme pass heavy offense under Patrick Mahomes. What he's going to have to deal with now is the calculus has changed. He's running the ball more than he ever has under Patrick Mahomes. And therefore, if you're continuing to split up the carries in the same manner, the guy at the top of your list is getting a lot more carries than what he was getting in the past because you're running the ball a lot more than you were in the past. And therefore, there are the guys who are going to have to make up for that. If you're Andy Reid, like you've got to be considering Perine. You've got to be considering whether or not you trust Steele or not. And if you don't, well, he's not great as a pass catcher or in pass protection. So why is he on your roster if you don't have the confidence that he can that he cannot put the ball on the ground during a game?
Yeah, and they're running it well because the interior of their offensive line is really good.
Yes.
It's like, so you can have different guys doing it because you're going to get the same result. All those guys get the same result when they carry the football because they're blocking it really well.
Yes.
We're always brought to you here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast by our friend David Starnes and David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world. Home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Jeff, the red zone issues continue for the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. Why? Why is that? Why are they, were they so good going up and down the field, but again, ran into problems when they got close?
Well, a couple things. One, they're so good at running the football right now that it defies logic why they don't want to use that more as they get closer to the goal line. I mean, I love Travis Kelce, but I'm tired of seeing that play. But they just flip it to him and try to have him bull through 5 people to get over the goal line. So I think it would help them to be more committed to the run game at that part of the field. But the other thing is that their options in that part of the field as far as throwing the football aren't great. Again, Xavier Worthy, McCole Hardman, Sky, all those guys, those little guys can't be a part of it. And they're going to beat up Travis Kelce. JuJu could be interesting. Now, he dropped the pass there that led to an interception, but he could be an interesting option there. But they don't like to do things that people normally do in the goal, in and around the goal line in the red zone, because they don't have that option of running a guy deep and creating space. Like in the red zone, you got to be able to really, you got to push people around a little bit. You got to manipulate people a different way to get them to move. And I don't think they're good at that right now.
Sam, what's your theory?
Well, I think Jeff touched on the primary thing, which is they're very scheme dependent right now because of the lack of talent they have with on the outside, and scheme really shrinks when you're in the red zone. Like, you've got so little space to work with that it's much harder to scheme guys open. But the reason I knew that stat about Kareem Hunt having 17 of his first 18 carries for 2+ yards because I tracked every one after they decided to pass the ball from the 2-yard line. So I do think they've got to be comfortable with what's working and just saying, we know you know it's coming, but we're going to run it anyway because we think we have the guys up front that are going to win this play anyway. If they're going to pass it, I think they've got to get under center more near the goal line so they can do some bootleg stuff. They can do some rollout stuff. They've got a quarterback who's terrific on the run, and they don't really use him on the run all that frequently in the red zone.
Yeah. And also, well, I was also going to say what happens is the way, if you really watch when people rush him in the red zone, it's not like all out get after him. It's really more of like a mirror of the offensive lineman. It's drop back. And so it's like it ends up being this kind of pantomime type defense where there's more people sitting back in the passing lanes and he can't throw it, but he also can't run because they're spying him. So it becomes harder because of that too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is harder because there's less. I mean, I agree with you. Andy Reid is brilliant about stretching the field and creating the gaps in the defense, and the defense just doesn't have as much to defend down there. So you either got to play bully ball or you got to trick them. And I'm with Sam, and I do think the Chiefs need to get under center a little bit more. I think a lot of the teams could stand to get under center and do some misdirection. I mean, just a naked bootleg around the backside. Like, if you're running the ball effectively, they're going to start crashing every time you start showing a run one way and you peel out around the other direction. That's a great play, but you can't do it out of shotgun because you're 5 yards back and everyone's looking right at you. There's no way to really sell the other direction. So I think that is one option as well. I'd like to see him incorporate a little bit more under center, but I also know that there's only so many reps in a practice.
Yeah.
You can't be great. I always, people in basketball, like, well, why do our inbounds suck? Or, how come we don't press? Like, you can't be a great pressing team, a great stalling team, a great inbounds team. You only have so many reps. Well, it's the same thing with Andy Reid. Like, he wants to do all these things to go up and down the field. And I think he just kind of counts on, well, we'll push them around a little bit down there, and they get pretty basic in some of the stuff they do. But I'm surprised they don't get under center more because that's what Andy Reid was brought up in.
Yeah, I mean, I always think the shotgun is going to be the more effective tool for a Patrick Mahomes-led offense. But I think getting under center makes the shotgun that much more effective. And I think when you become in such an exclusive shotgun team, you do become more predictable. And that predictability shows at its extreme when you're inside the red zone, when you've got less room to work with.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the defense. Can they carry this team? I'd like to point out Derrick Henry, 13 for 46, Zach Moss, 12 for 34, Bijan Robinson, 16 for 31, J.K. Dobbins, 14 for 32, Alvin Kamara added to that list, 11 for 26 against the number one running back on teams that the Chiefs have played so far this year. They're 66 for 169, 2.6 yards a carry. Jeff, can we say the word elite?
Yeah, I'll give you a different list.
Okay.
New Orleans Saints, down 2 offensive linemen coming in, lost one during the game. Chargers, down 2 offensive linemen coming in, both tackles. Atlanta Falcons, lose a guard and a center in the middle of their game. Those matter too.
Sure.
I think they're getting better. I think they're trending towards elite. I think when we have this conversation, we probably should define what elite is. Like, to me, elite is top 5. So I think they're a top 5 scoring defense. So yeah, I think they're elite right now. They were last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
That had to hurt.
No. I don't like throwing the word elite around without really feeling like it happens way too often. Like, last year they were elite, and this defense isn't what they were last year. And so could they get back to that level? Yeah, but I think part of that would be having a better pass rush and probably not giving up explosive plays. They give up a lot of explosive plays.
They are now 9th in yards allowed And
the Saints game did a lot for it.
Oh, it absolutely did. But that's and they're sixth, tied for fifth. You're right, tied for fifth.
It's one of the 5 games on the schedule.
Yeah.
The reason they're giving up explosive plays, and we haven't talked about, like, Brian Cook is struggling in the back end to cover when he's assigned too deep. Like, he got put on skates on that play. Now, he had a terrific interception, but that interception was caused by the guys up front. And the Chiefs have been pretty consistent where they're bringing pressure has been from the middle. And that's the reason. You said, Jeff, this defense isn't what it was last year. Well, one of the ways it's not what it was last year is, can you imagine a team that runs the ball 57% of the time? Only 6 teams in the NFL run it more than 50. The Saints were at 57. Yeah. A team like that, the last 2 years coming to Arrowhead Stadium, we all would have been talking. We would have spent 30 minutes of the podcast saying Saints are going to run all over them. How are they going to stop the run? And this year, it's a strength of the Chiefs, and I think it's changed since they got Mike Pennell back a year, late in the last season.
What?
I think it's changed since they got.
See,
first of all,
that probably hurt.
Your Mike
hurt, didn't it?
Your Mike Pennell was over on sacks, by the way. You had 3.5 sacks. I think we haven't seen him involved in the passing game yet.
Sacks and groceries.
I called Mike Pennell a good player, said I like that Mike Pennell's back, and you're like, what? You're like, what does that matter? Mike Pennell.
In the run game, it matters a lot.
Yeah.
In the run game, it matters a lot.
Yeah.
But I think once they focused so much on this run defense and decided it was going to be a priority, and look, there's a comment on this too as well, but Turk Wharton has played really good football from the interior as well. Like, their interior has been a problem outside of Chris Jones, and now they have other dudes who can play there. And what's ironic is it's the same dudes they've had on the roster that have just taken a step forward now.
Yeah. In this one,
Soren heard none of that other than me saying Mike Pennell's playing good football.
That's right. That's right. I'm just basking.
So someone thinks the D is better this year.
I listen. I think it can be. I'm not ready to say it is, but I mean, I think you said, well, that Saint game helped a lot. It did, but the Saints are also the highest scoring team in the NFL when they walk on the field.
Yeah, I give them credit for that. They played great defensively.
Yeah, no, and I know you did, and you called them elite. And I get it, and that's where. But I do think it is possible to be better than they were last year. Maybe because other teams aren't as good. I do think McDuffie's better. It is interesting though. They got after Derek Carr pretty good, but they haven't pressured the quarterback as much. They haven't really gotten the takeaways, although they got an interception in this game.
Still just 2 interceptions all year. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, listen, I think the key is, can they be close to what they were last year? And then how much better can they get on offense? Right. But I think the one thing we all feel good about, the defense is a strength.
Yeah. They have, the point I'm making, they have to be better offensively for this defense to win a championship. I think last year they could be what they were and get by because the defense could shut people down. This defense isn't shutting. They shut down the Saints, but they're not shutting down every team they see. The Ravens had almost 500 yards of offense against them, and they didn't even have a great game.
Yeah, I think the defense. I hear what you're saying. I do think the offense needs to be better because I think last year will probably, whenever the Patrick Mahomes era is over, will be one of the years they stole it. Right? They weren't supposed to win it last year. Eric had that theory, like, in 2018 was the Chiefs Super Bowl and the Patriots stole it. 2020 was the Chiefs Super Bowl and the Bucs stole it. Well, I don't know who the hell it was last year. I'd have to off the top, maybe the 49ers, and the Chiefs stole it from the 49ers.
Oh, the Ravens felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, the Ravens. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It would be the Ravens, and the Chiefs stole it. But all they have to do is be good enough, and then with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in any one playoff game, and have a good day in the game planning sessions, and they can win it. And this defense, I think, is good enough that the hope was that the offense was going to take a big leap and the defense would lose just a little bit, or maybe some, because of losing L'Jarius Sneed, Willie Gay, losing some depth. And I think we're finding that they haven't really backtracked much on defense. The offense, unfortunately, because of injuries, maybe isn't going to be as good, although they are running it better. And that's let's add that in. To Jeff's point, when you run the football, you burn the clock. Now, I know they had 80 plays, but running the ball and staying out of the field, the defense is sitting on the sidelines on the bench. They're getting better statistically because no points and no yards are being posted. So
They were good on a per play basis too, though. 4.3 yards per play. Last week against the Chargers, it was 4.2. Like they've been good in both areas, the total and the per play basis.
It is, but when you go back and look at all the great, defenses like the Ravens in 2000, Jamal Lewis, did he go for 2,000 that year or was it the next year? But he had like 1,500. They were a great running team. The 85 Bears had Walter Payton, and they were a great running team. They rushed for over 2,000 yards. The Steelers teams had Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier. I mean, the running game tends to come hand in hand because it keeps your defense sitting there on the sideline, which makes them statistically better. And I think it also, as you're shortening the game and you're pounding away, forces offensive play callers to like kind of do dumb things. Yeah.
Use their own tricks.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Remember, we're always brought to you by our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Call 816-781-7331 or visit them online. You can stop into any of their locations, North Kansas City, Liberty, Branson, Missouri. Our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, the OG of sponsors here on the Red Gold and Bold, proudly serving the greater KC area. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. From our friends at Key Cannabis, you can visit them at KeyCannabis.com/sweepstakes. Your chance to win a KC VIP game day experience when you shop at Key Cannabis. So take advantage of that. And, of course, by our friends at Minsky's. Check out the new Tranquillo Pizza, inspired by one Drew Tranquil. It is a fantastic addition to the Minsky's lineup. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, my name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red Gold and Bold podcast.